Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Stroy. I am the director for the school, the director of public engagement for the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University Newark. I would like to welcome everyone to the SPA annual SPA Service Day. Every Saturday for the past 5 years, we will come together the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We come together to, to work in the community, to be a part of the community. Well, before COVID, we would get together at the community food bank. But since COVID happened, we decided that it was important for us to uplift our public servants, the public servants that are in the community who are doing the work, who are leading the way. This year, we are fortunate to have a mayor, a prosecutor, a lieutenant. We are fortunate to have a community organizer. We are also fortunate to have someone who is a returning citizen that has understood what it means about public safety. These individuals are going to share their stories, their remarks, and their role about the importance of engaging the public from a public safety perspective. Every single one of them have years of experience and work in the community, about the community. And as we say at Rutgers Newark, not just in Newark, but we are of Newark. But these individuals are not just in Newark, but they are of Essex County and they are of New Jersey. It is my pleasure to introduce your moderator this morning, Professor Michael Dillard. Professor Dillard is the director for the undergraduate program in the School of Public Affairs and Administration. He is also an assistant professor. He is my partner in crime when it comes to community engagement and engaging our partners across the state and the Northeast Corridor. My pleasure. Professor Michael Dillard will take it over.
Thanks so much, Director Stroy. And I just want to echo everything that Sharon, mentioned to you all. We are grateful to have you all here a weekend before Thanksgiving. The idea overall of this event really is to engage with various public administrators throughout Newark, throughout Essex County, and throughout the state of New Jersey. But more importantly, to learn about their career trajectory, understanding exactly, how they were able to get to where they are, what were some of their challenges along the way, and then just simply to offer words of encouragement and advice to soon-to-be graduates. We've come up with a number of questions, both myself and Director Stroy. And after the panelists answer the questions, we want to leave more than enough, room and opportunities for students to be able to engage with today's guest speakers by asking questions. Please take advantage of the chat box feature by placing any statements or questions or comments that you overall might have. I think obviously with the dynamic panel that we have, it's more important to get to know a little bit more about them in terms of their title, the organization that they're associated with, and just a little bit about their role and responsibilities. And so the question overall, just in terms of right now, is just to get to know a little bit about our guest speakers then. So please, take a moment to discuss the organization, your title, a little bit about in terms of your roles and responsibilities, and last but not least, what public safety means to you. I will start with Mayor Warren of the City of Orange.
Good morning to all, and I am really sitting in the place of a true advocate and general in the cause of law enforcement. My brother, Todd Warren, who's the director of the Orange Police Department. He has a 30-year career. He started out in elementary education, went on to Juvenile Justice Center, went on to corrections, and then to deputy directorship, and then to the director of our police department. We transformed it by focusing on a community policing model that understands that we need social and emotional intelligence, that there is a broad call for diversity. I'm most proud that we're moving women through the ranks, and we named our first women captain in the history of our town. This is just a place where people grow, and with law enforcement, we've learned a long time ago is not just locking up the bad guys, but it's grabbing our youth before they go in. And a large part of what we've done is to make sure that we have a training ground for young people who want to enter into the profession so that they understand what it means to be in law enforcement. My job is to care for a 2.2 square mile town, to protect nearly 50,000 residents, and to make sure that I have a police force that's healthy, that is in tune with our vision, and that is helping to protect our town. So thank you for being on the panel. To Director Stroy, who has been a friend and a sister since second or third grade. Thank her for all of her work that she does in this important endeavor and training up a generation of leaders to take the reins of leadership. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Thanks so much, Mayor Warren. Prosecutor Williams.
Good morning, everyone. I work for the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. I've been there for 20 plus years. I've gone through the ranks from an incoming assistant prosecutor to now I'm the highest ranking female prosecutor in the prosecutor's office. I'm an executive assistant prosecutor. And what that means is that I am in charge of several courts, our mental health court, our drug court, our veterans diversion program. I'm also in charge of our victim witness unit, as well as all support staff. So I do all of the interviewing for possible employees to come into the prosecutor's office. Over the years with being at the prosecutor's office, I've had the opportunity to make sure that we are responsible to our community. Very involved in community policing through our victim witness unit, very involved in making sure victims of crime understand the criminal justice system, as well as to help them get the social services that they may be entitled to in their interaction with this office. I was born and raised in Newark. I still live in the community, and I believe that our office should be reflective of the community it serves. And I work very hard for that to happen. So I'm very happy to be here to talk to you. It's my duty and my honor to do so and to let other people know you just have to be, as they say, steadfast and determined in your career goals. You might have to take a little diversions, but you can succeed. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Prosecutor Williams. Lieutenant Hendricks.
Sorry, good morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Jamie Hendricks. I'm a lieutenant with Rutgers University Police Department. My specific and my current title is I'm the commander of the Community Affairs Unit. And with that position, I am charged with education, outreach, and engagement for our Northern Division of the department that serves the Rutgers University Newark campus, the Rutgers Biomedical Health Sciences campus, the surrounding area of Newark, New Jersey, and the greater Newark area. When I think about public safety and my role in it and helping to create specific roles in it, I really think about the idea of not only focusing on physical safety or environmental safety, but how we as a partnership with the public develop a positive quality of life for those who are around us. How do we positively shape how people feel safe? How do we positively shape and help them define what that looks like? One of my more recent additions to my current role is the charge for recruitment for our department. So I am one of the facilitators in the recruitment initiative for our university police department to help meet recruitment goals statewide through our north, central, and southern parts of our campus as well. And that is something that I really enjoy. I really see a lot of opportunity in because it allows us to get to know what people think about public safety, how they see themselves in a public safety process, and also helping them to envision how you can participate in public safety as a career, what the options are, and once you see yourself in that spot, how can we assist you in getting to where you want to be to make a more impactful goal for yourself, your community, and your family.
Thanks so much, Lieutenant. Director Kalisha Hill.
Good morning, and thank you again so much for having me. I am Kylisha Winkfield Hill, the Executive Director for the Brick City Peace Collective. Brick City Peace Collective is an initiative that was started in 2019 under the leadership of Mayor Raz J. Baraka. And the collective works to reduce violence in Newark by bringing together members of Newark's public safety ecosystem, comprising of grassroots organizations, service providers, and city departments, including law enforcement, to promote effective collaboration, inform strategy development and implementation, and coordinate resource deployment. Through leveraging the city's collective power, BCPC is able to drive systems change, strategies which center those most impacted by violence, while creating a sustainable pathway toward peace for all Newark residents. Public safety to us is making sure that everyone is included in the decision-making of the well-being of themselves and their community. Knowledge of self, when you know yourself, you are less likely to harm yourself. So making sure that the community has a response to what's happening, not just law enforcement, because for so long, public safety, when you think of public safety, you only think of law enforcement, but we now have a law enforcement response and we now have a community response, and understanding that every situation that is happening in our community does not necessarily need a phone call to the police. Sometimes it needs a phone call to the next door neighbor or the teacher that is teaching that student. So we make sure that everyone is included. And we believe that by doing this, we're able to reduce crime and violence in the city of Newark. We do this in partnership with the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery under the leadership of Director Keisha Yuri. And that was the initiative that was started by Mayor Baraka by way of ordinance, taking 5% away from the public safety budget and reallocating those funds for social workers, mental health counselors, and credible messengers. So grateful to be here with you guys today.
Thanks so much, Kylisha. And last but not least, Deputy Chief Tariq Rowland.
Good morning, everyone. Hope all is well. Thank you for having me. So my name is Tariq Rowland. I'm currently the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Business Administration Office in the city of Newark. I am also an academic counselor for NJ STEP, which is at Rutgers for people who are previously incarcerated or incarcerated pursuing higher education. My role in the city is we help oversee a $600 million budget with the BA, Eric Pennington, along with we are assisting leading with Mayor Raz Baraka. All departments report to this office. My role at Rutgers is assisting students with their higher education and transitioning out to become the best version of themselves. I don't want to say productive members of society. I prefer to say the best version of themselves. What does public safety mean to me? It's when everyone is safe, but I want to be specific and intentional. For me, it is when Black and brown bodies feel safe mentally, physically, and psychologically. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. So it's great to see so many faces on. One of the things that we really, try to do our best at promoting here at the School of Public Affairs and Administration is getting our students to understand the broad array of different types of career opportunities that one can pursue by studying public and nonprofit administration. We have a number of current undergraduate students, master's level students, and PhD students online right now. And we also, I'm just looking at some of the faces, we also have some alum. And obviously there's so many different types of opportunities and pathways that you can pursue with a degree in public and nonprofit administration. But more importantly, I want to know from you all then, how did you get to where you are? What inspired you to pursue such a career opportunity that you're currently doing as of right now? So let's start off with Lieutenant Hendricks.
So the Frank story, and I've said this in different points in recruiting with high school students and also college students as well, and also those interested in law enforcement or public safety in the community, is that I approached the idea of wanting to become a police officer, or more broadly, the beginning involved in law enforcement, because when I was growing up in East Orange, I saw some things that I did not understand. Overall, with law enforcement, overall with government, and I'm not saying anything regarding brutality or just different things, but just things that I just didn't understand and grasp. But I also had opportunities where I had positive assistance. I remember my first DARE officer. I had a stalker when I was in high school, and I remember what the experience was being contacted by the detectives in being made to feel safe in that experience. So in understanding the different nuances and not knowing why things happened a certain way, I wanted to learn more about that career. Transparently, I hadn't seen really any females directly contacted that looked like me. I didn't see any women of color. I had never really met any female police officers growing up. So I started to say, you know, I want to learn about this career, but I saw this absence of myself. I started a very forward journey of trying to learn about law enforcement as a student at Rutgers University in Newark. I looked for student employment at my department. I was hired, and I made that my mission of saying, yes, I'm employed by the department, but I also want to use this time to talk to police officers within Rutgers University Police Department and other departments to learn and figure out how do I fit in the specific career. So my motivation really became to understand the why and the how with the differences. My motivation intensified as a young mother. I had my son when I was 19. And when I learned more about the career, about the mission, the power that you have to shape and change people's lives, that became a driving factor for me to say, how can I use this opportunity to not only protect the community, not only to provide services, but to, in the long term, shape people's lives and help to create opportunities that they see themselves in this process. And that they are not placed in a position of trying to understand and visualize themselves in a process like I was as an 18, 19, 20-year-old.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Mayor Warren.
So the journey began because my mother would not allow us to complain whatsoever about any circumstance. She always told us to take action and to do something about your circumstance and move yourself forward. And it was that very idea that if I wasn't satisfied with something, I did something about it. When I didn't like what was going on law enforcement wise, or how we were training officers, or how we were bringing them in, I did something about it. I put programs into place so that we can train officers and make them more proficient in policing our communities in the ways that we require it. If you look at most places, including Orange, you'll see that there are probably a small amount of hot spots for crime. Other portions where you may see criminal behavior, there's lack of opportunity, there's lack of focus, there's not enough mentors in the community, there are mental health issues in the community. So if we address those things, then we can bring crime down to a certain sector, and we can deal with that law enforcement wise, but deal with the other parts community wise. So I saw that problem and put things into place. The other thing, and we should talk about how we get to these places. The why is because we want to get stuff done. How we do it is because I knew politicians and I knew people in law enforcement. I myself was a former prosecutor, and I dogged those people for information, for access, for mentorship, for everything that I could get from them so that I could move myself into a position where I could fulfill my dreams and goals. And I want to encourage each of the students to do that. You are never a bother. You're never an encumbrance on someone. You should always, if you're sincere about it, pursue your goals and question people and try to find them and make yourself as best informed as you can. But that would be my mantra, that if you see something, do something about it, get involved in it, gain an expertise, and move that obstacle out of your way.
Well said, Mayor Warren. It's all about becoming a responsible citizen, recognizing and understanding current challenges that exist. You know, and I think not faking the funk about it. We recognize that there's a lot of struggles out there. There's a number of challenges going on. But what are we going to do as future inspiring public administrators to tackle those issues? Prosecutor Williams.
Well, from a kid, I used to like to watch TV, and I always liked to watch Perry Mason. And I thought, wow, he was a great attorney, because every time he defended somebody, there would always be that his client was innocent and somebody else in the courtroom was the guilty person. Naive as I was, I said, I want to be a lawyer. But more importantly, I had a family member who was in law enforcement and was a lawyer as well, but he was a male. And we would talk periodically, and after I passed the bar, he said, you know, you need to get some experience. Why don't you think about getting a job at the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, because you'll get trial experience and you'll learn about criminal law. And that's what I did. I interviewed, I was hired, and I found that when I was there weren't too many people in the office that looked like myself, especially of the females. I think there were 3 of us that came in at the same time. One has gone on to be a Superior Court judge in another county, and another person, she moved to Pennsylvania, that started when I started. But I saw that there was a need to have someone in the prosecutor's office that looked like me, who could understand some of those cases that we're going through, and have an alternate voice as to how people should be treated, how people should be listened to, and also how it should be reflected that all cases, everybody can't go to jail. And there are diversionary programs over time that have been created so people can get help for their addictions. And I'm very, very much an advocate of those diversionary programs. And in some cases, if the cases have to be dismissed, dismiss the case. We're not out there trying to be this organization that's so unresponsible to the community. And that's what I've tried to do over the years. I've been, as I said earlier, I am a product of my community. And one of the things my father instilled in me was to do the best that I could, and to the extent that I could, bring others in so they could also do that as well. So I've been doing that now. And I hope that the community sees a difference. We do have responsive people to the community. I believe in contacting victims, talking to victims, not at them, but talking to them, having discussions with them, and explaining the process. Now, do everybody agree with us all the time? Absolutely not. But they can't say that we have not been responsive to them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Prosecutor Williams. And just, as a FYI, certainly, Gwendolyn Williams has been extremely helpful to the SPAA family, offering a number of internship opportunities for our undergraduate students. And actually one, specific success with that internship opportunity, one of our students received an actual job opportunity with the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. So it's all about finding those different creative ways of, even if you don't know exactly what it is that you want to do, meet with different people, meet with various public administrators, find different opportunities to get your foot in the door and learn as much as you can. Be that sponge. You need more than the book smarts to get ahead. You need more than understanding it from a theoretical component. And that's exactly what it means to not only be a public administrator, but being a practical administrator and understanding those types of skills that you really need to be an effective organizational leader. Director Hill, jump in.
Yes. So growing up in an urban community, in public housing, very little access, a father that was incarcerated more than half of my life, a mother that was addicted to drugs my entire life, a grandmother that rearranged her life to take care of my siblings and I. It was just very little access. And I understood as a child that I had no control over the circumstances I was born into, yet I had to deal with the consequences of the choices that my parents had made. Funny enough, I'm on this call with Mayor Dwayne Warren, who decided that he'd be responsible for me at the age of 16. And that is when I began to receive access. And I promised myself that once I received access, that I would begin to create opportunities where opportunities never existed before. So I've had the opportunity to work under Mayor Warren's leadership. Now, under through Mayor Warren, I had an opportunity to work under Lieutenant Governor now, back then Speaker of the House, Sheila Oliver, and now under the Honorable Mayor Raz J. Baraka. Prior to my role as the Executive Director of Brick City Peace Collective, I was the policy advisor to Mayor Baraka, and I was committed to undoing systems that were never created to protect, folks that come from situations like me and, communities like me. I made it my business to show up every day trying to figure out how it is we create opportunities for children that were being born into situations like myself. So I'm so grateful for Mayor Warren's leadership. I'm so grateful that he decided that he'd be responsible for me. But now that I have this access, what am I going to do with it? So there's this commitment to show up every day and bring other folks to the table, because surely you cannot do it alone, to bring other folks to the table and give as many folks access as possible, undo as many systems that were not created for us as possible. And it's a daily fight, but we are committed. So grateful for the folks that decide that they're going to be responsible for children like me. But again, once you get this access, you have to do something with it. And I'm so grateful to be in this position today.
Before I get to Tariq, I feel like, Kalisha, you just took us to church right quick there. So the idea of not just having a mentor, but more importantly, having a sponsor, because that's really what it's about. You don't just get to success by yourself. You have to have other people to help you along the way to get there. And it's not just so much about having those wonderful titles and the salaries that come with it. But once you get there, what are you going to do specifically to help other people to get there? What are you going to instill into them? And that's really what it's overall about: mentoring, inspiring others, realizing that, because often at times, I've come across it. I've met a lot of folks too in my years of just, I'm not sure what I really want to do, or I'm not even sure of myself and my own self-worth. And sometimes you need other people to see something in you that you don't necessarily see overall in yourself, and then being able to pay it forward. But go ahead, Tariq, jump in.
Thank you. It's kind of hard to follow everyone else, but so for me, ultimately, what led me up, one of my motivating reasons was, of course, Director Stroy, who's been a mentor since my undergrad year in 2017. But just to touch on a little bit, so I'm previously incarcerated, and I was a social worker in my undergrad. But while I was incarcerated, because I had prior higher education in college, I was a top basketball player in the state. Through my incarceration, I began to just see how I was given the benefit of the doubt, or how correction officers and administrators and people who were in that environment allowed me access based upon what society values. Like my physical features, I'm a small, light-skinned African-American man. I began to see that I had an opportunity to speak up and represent for our people, right? And communities of color and people who look like me. But what really kicked it off when I began to say that I wanted to delve into this career was I was taking an internship at an elderly home, and being a social justice major, being a part of HLLC, Honors Living Learning Community at Rutgers Newark, like we stand for justice, right? To remain silent when you see anything oppressive, right? You have chosen the side of the oppressor. So we were talking with the director of the senior citizens home, and we were like that we need patients for TREC, people who need like a breathing machine. So I was saying to myself, like, we actually need people to be sick in order to help them. I began to watch how our patients, we would exhaust all of their, Medicaid and Medicare, and they weren't even getting adequate treatment. But then, like, they'll pass away, and then we'll bury them in a box, right? What would it look like if those funds will be reallocated to their families and really, really to them or in the community? So I began to want to choose that a career path, and just from there, everything just took off for me. And having the opportunity, I realized that it wasn't an opportunity, it was my obligation, right? To use my privilege, power, and access to speak and advocate for people who look like me in my community. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well said. So, one of the challenges, I know you guys, you make it look so easy what you currently do on a day-to-day basis, but I certainly know it's nowhere near easy. And obviously you have some passions with it, but you have to find those different types of ways to keep yourself self-motivated, and coming up with different types of ideas in terms of prioritizing, the importance of not only your role and responsibilities, but meeting the demands of various stakeholders. So what I want to know from you all then is in terms of how do you actually go about prioritizing those concerns then, based upon the stakeholders, based upon the individual groups that you are overall serving? So let's start off with Mayor Warren, because obviously there's a number of stakeholders that he has to cater to and, providing services to and so forth. And so let's hear from him.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm an elected official, so I have to get voted upon every 4 years. So there's a discrete, insular constituency that I have to deal with on a regular basis, and not just law enforcement, but a number of issues across the board dealing with social services for residents. So I have to constantly be on a listening tour about what their priorities are, what things they want to see, and I have to give an assessment as to how I'm doing. And we have to be open to that kind of critique from whoever our stakeholder is, and we have to be able to absorb it and then learn from it and move from there. Sometimes that can be difficult. I'm egoless, so it's a little bit easier. But for even me to hear critiques that may not be favorable, that may not be true, you still have to deal with those and deal with the constituency and move their agenda forward. But I also have a constituency that's comprised of law enforcement officials and unions. And so I have to deal with their issues as well, deal with their income structure, deal with the way they do business, deal with their training, overall in that respect as well. And then within the subset of a constituency, I have children to deal with. And those children can be the targets of overcriminalization, they can be the targets of neglect and so forth. So I have to make sure that I infuse in all of my policies something that deals with people who can't help themselves, such as children, the elderly, those who have disabilities. So we have to look at a broad range of issues, and I encourage all of our students not to be pegged into one idea. We can go in with an overall idea of what we think we should be doing in our program, but we should always be willing to change, to adapt, and to be able to address the needs that emerge in our citizenry. One of the things that I probably loathe the most is technology. But I have to deal with the fact that technology is here, it's useful, and it can be a powerful tool to advance our community. Just because I'm a dinosaur doesn't mean that I have to have dinosaur tactics in my governing. So we should always be willing to adapt and change, move our cities forward, listen to our constituencies, and then better ourselves. A program like the one that you're in is one of those techniques where you're bettering yourself and making yourself more adaptable for use by your constituency. I just want to comment on Rutgers, where I went to law school, and Director Stroy, whom we literally grew up in a neighborhood where we saw all this kind of powerlessness and the needs that we're talking about today. But there's a lot of competition out there in terms of people wanting to be public administrators at the top of their fields. And you at Rutgers are getting a world-class education and access that people just don't get at other schools. So you should take advantage of everything you get in the school and make sure you use it to your maximum benefit, because it's there for you, but you have to take advantage of it. Thank you.
You said something important, Mayor, in terms of removing and setting aside the ego, not allowing the ego to drive, recognizing exactly why you got into the position to begin with, recognizing that it's a call, more so of being a change agent, what it means to be a public servant and making an impact, making overall a difference. But more importantly, realizing that there's always room for an improvement. And as future inspiring public administrators, you want to be able to get not only just buy-in, but you want to get sound advice and feedback from others in terms of, well, so how am I doing overall as a public administrator? How am I best meeting your needs? I have to do the same, or we do the same as instructors. What are we doing overall to meet our students' needs? And that's the same as a public administrator. I noticed that Lieutenant Hendricks was shaking her head, nodding to that, saying yes. So then I guess I will start off with her. So go ahead, Lieutenant, jump in.
So I think in the process of really trying to prioritize the concerns and look at the plan of action, I feel it's most important first to make sure that the people that you are trying to serve, that you are serving and that you're impacting, they do feel seen and heard, that they feel like they feel and understand that you are authentically trying to impact and help them. They feel that you see where they are in life. Because if they don't feel that way, they can't have that beginning conversation to articulate what their needs and their concerns are. I believe the second step is once you establish that groundbreaking trust and honoring who they are and what space they're in, is trying to see how much they're willing to understand other people's perspectives as well. Oftentimes we're in spaces and places where people have multiple different needs, but resources are finite. You have to make a decision of where am I going, right? How am I can't be in two places at one time, but how do I best impact a group directly? And that may also indirectly have a positive impact for other people. So I think in looking at how do you assess that, developing that trust, looking and saying, I hear what you're saying. I hear the importance of what's going on. Are you willing to commit to have a conversation to understand the different factors of how we can collectively address this? Or this is how my agency can help you. But also in those harder times when people say, this is really important to me, but there could be something over here that is paramount, that's having devastating impacts, building that trust to have a conversation of saying, I see and I hear you, but this is also happening over here as well. And that's a harder conversation sometimes to have with people, where you have to make them understand, like, you're important, we value what you're saying, but we're working in two different directions as well. So I think that's always the first step in building the trust. The other part about it is when you make sure that you're seeing and you're hearing people, if you have to tell them, listen, we're going to work on this, but it's not an overnight solution, and you have that trust, it's more palatable for them to accept it. And giving that truth and that reality versus just telling somebody to listen, we can do this, this, and this, and it's going to be automatic change. So to me, that's always the first step in making sure that you're honoring someone's experience, you're building that trust. And then when you do that, making sure that they also are willing to be a participant and look at all facets of how other people are affected as well, in strategizing and creating long-term change.
Well said. So, this is certainly a question that I think, in terms of just the number of issues that are going on right now in society and the racial reckoning, so around social justice, obviously, particularly in terms of, George Floyd and so on. And there's a lot of talk about defunding the police. I want to be able to hear particularly from Prosecutor Williams and Mayor Warren in terms of your thoughts of what that overall means to you. How does that resonate with you? And more importantly, how are you addressing this type of an issue? Because obviously this is a sensitive conversation here when you start thinking about, in terms of defund the police and just, again, social justice that's going on. So Prosecutor Williams, anything that you can perhaps share regarding that? And again, how does it overall resonate with you?
Well, one of the things is that you have to look at the term defunding the police. What does that absolutely mean, or what is your impression of what it means? And what I think it means is that, everybody looks at law enforcement, that they get this big pot of money and it basically goes to salaries and nothing else. But that's not true. It does go to salaries, some of it, but it also goes to programs. And I've been a long, strong advocate for various community programs in which we are responsive to the community. We've always, for the last 20 years or so, because I pushed it so hard, are responsive to our victims. We also have our diversionary programs. My office was one of the first offices in the state, only second to Union County, with a mental health diversion program. So if a defendant came with charges and they had a mental health illness, that they did not go to jail, but they went to the diversionary program. They saw doctors, social workers, and they were helped to become a productive part of society again. Drug court is a statewide program that's been going on for more than 20 years now. We are very much active in that as well. And then our veterans diversion program for our veterans who have serious illnesses that may impact whether or not they are incarcerated. We look at that. And also, it's about desensitizing people. Law enforcement used to say, we're not social workers. These programs, those are for social workers. We're here just to keep law and order. No, you're a social worker too. There are programs now that are going out for people who have mental health issues that are in crisis, that social workers go along with the police so they can recognize those issues. And people are being hospitalized instead of being put in jail. But it's about two things. It's about changing the mindset of law enforcement from traditional law enforcement to a new law enforcement that looks at alternatives when they interact with the public. And it's also the public having trust in law enforcement, that everybody is not going to go to jail, that there are programs out there and they will be listened to. So it's been more so, I would say, since George Floyd that we talk about it more. But it's been a process that we've been working on for years to change that mindset. It's about knowing that, everybody is not here to be the big bad guy, and that when you have people who are reflective of the community working in the office so they understand, I think it makes a big difference. So I work very hard on those fronts. And I'm just fortunate that recently that I've had leadership in the office in terms of the prosecutor and first assistant who agree, and they also enforce what I am requesting of all the people that work for us, as well as going out into the community themselves to be responsive at community meetings, to be responsive to the community about what goes on in our office and how it is reflected in the community. So it's a working relationship. I hope that answered the question to some degree.
No, absolutely. And it's certainly a much, continue to be conversation. But go ahead, Mayor, jump in.
Yeah, I have to echo what Gwen said about defunding the police, and I think it's probably symptomatic of the generation who just uses broad terms, and I think rather recklessly, in terms of saying defund the police, because that is not what they mean. And maybe they said it for dramatic effect, but to have long range effect, they should have said something more consistent and more accurate, that you're not defunding the police, you're prioritizing the funding of non-arrest tactics, non-criminalization tactics that go to law enforcement. Kalisha's program that she's in right now is a direct result of prioritizing funds to places where we can prevent policing, in terms of decriminalizing a certain area. Her program is it's creative, it's far-reaching, it gets into the community. But that's what community policing has always been about, and they're just prioritizing it by funding it that way. DeLacy Davis, who's on the screen, Dr. Davis, when he was a police officer, did this kind of work all the time, where it wasn't just about arresting, but it was about having youth groups for children, football teams for children, making officers go into their pockets and funding activities for the community. Those are kind of defund police activities that they're speaking about, but they haven't named it properly. In Orange, we're doing a program where we're teaching our officers sign language. We brought a university into our police department so that we can be an off-campus, so that they can start to get their degrees and further their education. That is the kind of activity we talk about when we talk about defunding the police, putting school liaisons that their officer, that Lieutenant spoke about earlier. Those are the kinds of community service activities and far-reaching community needs that we talk about funding and prioritizing when we talk about defund the police. So for me to say politically I'm for defunding the police may be something that's politically dangerous, but if you break it down and really look at what that means, you have been defunding the police for a long time. As long as you have these diversionary programs, you have offices like the one that Kalisha works in, you're doing the kind of work that the Essex County prosecutor is doing. We've always done that. And I have to admit, there was a time that all funds went into enforcing the law, being on the street, beefing up arrests. Ferguson really showed us that policing and giving tickets and arresting people was part of their profile. But we've changed our direction. So I think the larger challenge now is to stop calling it defund the police and start calling it prioritizing community needs.
Well said, Tariq. Go ahead, jump in.
Thank you. So I have a unique perspective from being previously incarcerated and also working in the prison. So I just think about, right, like the funding for policing comes from the people, right? And when you look at when elected officials are elected, right, one of the main things that they talk about is, you know, crime prevention. And the question I always ask myself is, what would it look like rather than spending millions and millions of dollars on new police cars, right? Like, what would it look like if we poured that money back into the community, right? What would it look like if you see what the Office of Violence and Prevention is doing, along with I think it's Newark Street Academy and things like that, when you have students who are able to walk to school and walk home, you know, like, and things like that. But I just think that if we can pour that money, like, what would it look like in our communities if the money that is for policing gets poured back into the community for Boys and Girls Clubs, and not just diversionary programs and not just intervention programs, but prevention programs. I sit in a lot of meetings and I'm on a lot of panels where, you know, we talk about doing the work when someone is coming home. Let's just erase that so they don't even have to go to prison, right? And I think that if we focus on that and, you know, allocate those funds to that, like the city of Newark is doing, I think that, you know, we'll be in a much, much better space, because police respond to things, you know, and I think that the people are already there, and if we can pour that money into the community, help them mentally, physically, emotionally, I think that we'll be in a much, much better space.
Absolutely, well said. So obviously, you know, time is not on our side. So I have only one final question, because then I want to turn it over to my colleague, Lieutenant Jamie Hendricks, to handle the Q&A portion of this. But one pressing question that I think all soon-to-be graduate students really want to know and hear from you all in terms of, what are you looking for in today's, you know, graduates? You know, what are some skill sets? What are some important qualities and overall? Part of our program here at the School of Public Affairs and Administration, we require our undergraduate students to complete an internship opportunity. And that internship opportunity involves around 150 hours in order to fulfill graduation requirements. But what are you looking for in today's hires? Skill sets, anything that really overall stands out to you. So let's go with Mayor Warren.
You should be able to communicate by writing, by speaking, be able to take large amounts of information, synthesize it, and present it to a diverse public. You should be aggressive in trying to learn everything you can about your position. You should make yourself a nuisance to those who are in places where you want to be. And you should be prepared. You should be prepared. You should be absolutely prepared as best you can. Your colleagues all over the world are seeking the too few positions that are out there, and they're doing everything to advance themselves. You should be prepared. And if you came to work with us, and I get interns all the time, and I'm rather direct, I'm rather tough, because I really see it as my job to prepare you to go out into the world with skills that you can use everywhere. And that's what we look for. And the other stuff is basic. I don't even discuss being there on time, dressing appropriately. Those things I expect that you all should know by now. It's just too ingrained. You are now second, third generation, some of you college students and career people. So I think we should know that part already. But the preparation, the being able to write and to communicate and articulate ideas to a broad range of people are highly essential.
Thanks so much, Mayor. Kalisha.
So I just wanted to say, echo what, you know, Mayor Warren said, that definitely, you know, prepare. I think that skills are important. But when we're talking about a community that I work for, in a community that I work in, I think that there are other things that are equally as important such as humility, such as empathy. Those things will, being able to place your ego to the side. I think those things are extremely important when you are thinking about going to work in an urban community. I think education is amazing, right? I went to school, I have a bunch of degrees, right? But that is just only part of it, right? Like, can you identify with the people? Can you take yourself out of the situation? Can you meet people where they are? Can you, just understand what they want for themselves and not what you want for them, right? And I think that is how we get folks in our community to the next level. Oftentimes, we're placing our education at the forefront. We can, write really well. We can speak really well. We are, talking above them. And if you are, if you walk into this space and you're talking above people and at people and not with them, this is a very difficult space to be in because we are of service to the people. And if just throwing out just a data point, right? It doesn't mean that folks in Newark are not educated, but when we talk about just an education fact, less than 17% of Newarkers have a degree, right? So if you are having, looking to have some of these high level conversations doing this work, then you're already you're functioning from a space where folks can't really understand what it is you are talking about. So while those things are important, while I'm extremely grateful that, Mayor Warren was making sure I was a good writer, making sure I was a good reader, sometimes none of that stuff even mattered when I had to go into the community and when I had to show up at a crime scene and when I had to go to a mother that was, just came out of a domestic violence situation. That stuff was placed to the side. So more importantly, outside of your education, can you empathize and do you have humility is a real thing when you're thinking about coming to serve the people of Newark or the people of every urban community. So I just want to add that to it.
Well said. I'll turn it over to you, Jamie.
Hey, thank you for that. And I know we are a little short on time. So I just want to offer the panelists a choice of 2 different questions to see what you would best like to respond and answer. I'm just making sure that we have everybody on here. So I'm going to go with the first question that was offered up in the last question that was offered in the chat. And again, just let us know what you would like to answer. If I can just scroll up a little bit to see. So our first question was from Shawan Butts, and she inquired, how do you keep your team on track with the mission, vision, and values of the organization? And the second question that panelists, if you'd like to ask, is from Lance. And his question is, what are the most effective efforts for community building that have made communities feel most seen or heard? So again, 2 different questions. Let us know what you would like to ask in your closing remarks or closing question.
In terms of keeping the team on track and on vision, it's something that you have to live and breathe every day. The vision is not just a commercial that you hire them under and you talk about all the time. It's something they have to see you as a leader living each and every day. And I try to do that in terms of being a public servant, in terms of understanding that all the resources that I have at my disposal are not mine. They belong to the people, and it's our job to make sure they get back to the people, not just give it to the people, but get back to the people so that they can multiply and be available for more of the community. So living the example is the best way to do it. If you're preaching service as I do, if you're preaching going beyond the call of duty as I do, then you as a leader have to do that as well. They have to see it in vision, in motion, and in life, and your team will start to do it too. The other thing, you have to be strict about excellence and not allowing your constituency, not allowing your employees' view of the constituency to determine how well they're going to work. We have to understand that every constituent is valuable to our operation and to our community. Every one of them deserves the best treatment that you can give them. And so you have to live that as well to make sure that you give 100% to every part of the community, no matter where they are, no matter what condition they're in, because our job is to lift everyone. And so we're at a standard that everyone benefits across the board.
I would just like to also add, if I may, similar to Mayor Warren's comments, is that in my office, we always reinforce the fact that have you been in contact with the victim? Both from our assistant prosecutors who are actually in court handling the cases, but as well as from our victim witness unit, for our people in victim witness who are talking to our victims on a daily basis, just to make sure that is occurring. And in cases that sometimes it's difficult to deal with the victim, that we have people in place that can meet them at their level and also see what they need in terms of their issues that they are handling. We are very, very proactive in that regard with making sure the victim is being heard, as well as making sure that on both sides, to the victim witness advocate and the assistant prosecutor, that we are keeping those things in mind. Also, just another thing, the young gentleman is not part of this question, but had talked earlier about prevention. My office does have prevention in terms of our community justice unit. We go out into the community to the schools, grammar school, high school, and on the college level. We have youth conferences. As a matter of fact, we will be having one at NJIT on December the 16th. For our high schoolers here in Essex County, Newark, Irvington, East Orange, and Orange. We've already sent invitations out to the schools. We have approximately 400 kids who will be in attendance, talking about such issues as internet safety, preteen issues, dating violence, a whole lot of things that our young people talk about. So we do preventive measures as well. So it's not about being reactive, but we are being preventive too. And our community justice unit has been in existence for the last 20 years. We also have a high school summer internship program, the only one in the state in which we pay high schoolers to be a part of our prosecutors program for 6 weeks. They go to State Trooper Youth Week. They meet various officials and all throughout the various different types of law enforcement agencies. And so they know when they get ready to go to college, what they might be interested in doing while they're looking for a career. So we do have a preventive aspect as well. I did not want to neglect that. I'm sorry it's not part of the total question, but I thought you needed to know that. Thank you.
I'll jump in myself as well. And I think I'm going to provide a combo answer to both of those questions as best as I can and be succinct in time. I think it's important when you're talking about managing the mission and vision with the team that you're working with as aligned to the organization and the community, is that you have to operationalize what it is and really break down, not that it's just words on a wall or words in a policy or words that are repeatedly over and over, but what does that tangibly mean in your actions every day? I also think it's important to be realistic and honor the people who are doing the work and how they're doing the work, and looking for opportunities for collaboration when things are not fully in your wheelhouse, or when you don't have as much staff as you like to execute an initiative, looking for those partners that you can really build on and create opportunities to meet that mission, to meet that vision, but also to serve the community. In respect to making sure that people are feeling seen and heard, I see some of my students who've been in the class for a class I've taught in the past. And one of the things that I keep saying to myself just about every day when I come to work is that change does not have to be monumentous. It has to be continuous. You don't have to make a huge project to make change in someone's life. You can be present and be continuous. And that's a key facet of making sure that people are seen and heard. You don't want to make sure if you're attempting to impact somebody's life that you only see them for 1 minute, because that's only a glimpse. So when we're looking at how do we see and we hear people, how are we building in systems where there is some continuous or regular level of contact with them so that they are not forgotten after an event? If something tragic happens to somebody in a moment, a lot of times we see that in our own families. Somebody passes away or someone has a baby Or there's something that happens. Everybody runs around in that one moment. Everybody's excited and they're there, and then things get silent. When we're talking about really doing that work in the community, we have to build in these systems. And how are we being regular, continuous, and having contact, whether that's once a month or once a year, there's a check-in. If it's not ourselves, how are we popcorning it to someone else who has that outreach or that level of outreach as well? So to me, that built-in continuous nature of contact is how we really work on making sure people are seen and heard and feel like they are a partner in this experience of public safety.
I just want to jump in and just speak to making sure folks feel seen and heard and highlight Newark's People's Assembly. We were able to adopt this model from our good brother in Jackson, Mississippi, Mayor Lumumba, where every issue, every ordinance, every policy, every decision that we are thinking about making in the city of Newark, we take to the people first. We make sure that we are hosting listening sessions in every ward, multiple listening sessions, because the power is in the people. It is not in the folks that have the position. So I just wanted to highlight People's Assembly, always making sure that no ordinance, no policy, nothing goes forth without making sure that the people provide the mayor with feedback, and also let the mayor know whether or not it matters to them or not. No, this development project can't come here. No, this liquor store can't come here. No, we need a community, we need a resource center here, right? So nothing moves in the city of Newark without first taking it to the people. And I love that, Mayor Lumumba out of Jackson, Mississippi started that, but I'm very appreciative that Mayor Baraka saw that it was necessary and it was needed, and that our folks understand that they are part of all of the decision making that is taking place in the city of Newark.
And Deputy Chief Rowland, did you want to add in for one of the questions?
No, everyone said everything, so I'm just sitting back. I feel like I'm a student right now. I'm just sitting back. I'm listening. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Dr. Dillard, did you want to wrap up our discussion?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Lieutenant Hendricks. So on behalf of the faculty and staff, on behalf of the Dean of the School of Public Affairs and Administration, Dr. Greg Van Ryzen, we say thank you for joining us today to be a part of this opportunity. Again, I wish that we were in person over at the Community Food Bank on this cold day, but I think, this was certainly a beneficial opportunity, a much needed conversation. Personally, also just want to send some shout outs to Professor Hemmings. I see a number of her students on. I see Professor Dr. DeLacy Davis also on. And again, just thanking everyone for taking out, much needed time from your busy schedule to join us. A special kudos and shout out also to Director Sharon Stroy, who also assisted in this effort and, pulling this off together. A special thanks to the City of Orange Mayor Dwayne Warren for also jumping in at the last minute to assist us on this. But that's really what it's about. We have to kind of pivot, right, Mayor? And we just really overall make it happen. Students, stay in contact with today's guest speakers. One thing that I will actually ask our guest speakers, yes, I'm going to ask this. Can you please put your email address in the chat box? We are big on, networking, offering different types of opportunities, whether it might be internship opportunities, job shadowing experiences. And I'm going to actually ask even for Dr. DeLacy Davis and Professor Hemmings to put their email addresses also in. We have a number of, execs on this line, and that's really what it's about. Building your social capital, being able to network, realizing and figuring out different ways in which executives can show you along the way, kind of show you the ropes, learning more importantly in terms of how they got to where they are and what was their challenges along the way and how can they pass some of that knowledge on to you. So again, thank you so much, students. But mainly, or I would say most importantly, learn to pay it forward. Don't just simply, be a part of this program and studying public administration and understanding all of the challenges and the nuances from a theoretical standpoint, but really understanding that you play a role in this. And it's going to be up to you to also tackle some of those challenges, some of those problems, and to be able to help out. And you don't have to actually wait until you graduate from the program. There are things that you can do right now as students to be able to assist in those efforts and so on. So again, I wanted to say thank you to everyone. I'm wishing everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving next week with your family and friends. Continue to stay safe and take good care. This session has come to an end.
Thank you, Dr. Dillard.
Take care.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Dillard. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Enjoy your weekend,
Take
everyone.
care.